Welcome back to Dinar Community Channel. They said it was worthless, a gamble, a fantasy, a fool's dream. But today, the Iraqi dinar just shocked the entire world. What was once dismissed as a lost cause has now risen to become one of the most powerful comeback stories in financial history. The currency they mocked, it just made history. For decades, the Iraqi dinar was written off, dismissed, ignored, labeled a relic of economic instability, warfare, and government dysfunction. It was the punchline to jokes in global financial circles. Analysts scoffed, critics sneered, and mainstream media all but buried it in obscurity. The Iraqi dinar was the currency that was never supposed to recover, let alone rise. But against all odds, that's exactly what happened. The IQD has just done what no one thought it could. It won. This wasn't just a currency move. This was a global financial pivot. A tectonic shift that reshaped how investors, central banks, and entire economies think about valuation, sovereignty, and the silent power of resilience. Iraq's dinar reemerged not through smoke and mirrors or manipulation, but through a slow, patient, and quietly strategic buildup that stunned the global stage. What we just witnessed was not only a revaluation, it was a vindication. It all started years ago, when whispers of a future RV, the revaluation, began circulating within the alternative finance community. Most dismissed it as fantasy, a speculative fairy tale spun by dreamers hoping for overnight riches. Even as evidence mounted, currency reserves increasing, oil revenues stabilizing, national debt shrinking, few paid attention. The world had written Iraq off long ago. In the shadows of global financial dominance by the dollar, euro, and yuan, the IQD was forgotten. But Iraq never stopped building. Beneath the surface, beyond the headlines, there was movement. Infrastructure rose from the rubble. Trade agreements were inked. International partnerships deepened. The Central Bank of Iraq implemented new technologies, tightened controls, and aligned with IMF standards. Oil exports surged, creating a surplus that went largely unreported. What appeared to be a quiet country rebuilding itself was actually a nation meticulously positioning its currency for one of the most strategic financial comebacks in history. And then it happened. Almost overnight, the value of the Iraqi dinar surged, first slowly, then in massive waves. Within hours, bank systems worldwide updated their FX terminals. International trading platforms saw rates shift from a meager valuation to a stunning $3.90 per IQD. The world froze. Analysts who had mocked dinar investors found themselves speechless. News channels scrambled to understand what had occurred. Traders rushed to catch up. But it was already too late. The currency that was once a forgotten footnote in global economics had just become one of the most valuable in the world. But how did this happen? How did a currency so battered by war, sanctions, and corruption rise to dominate headlines? The truth is, the IQD didn't just survive, it outperformed, outmaneuvered, and outlasted. The process began with stabilization. Iraq's central banking policies were redesigned from the inside out. Foreign reserves climbed into the hundreds of billions, signaling fiscal strength that couldn't be ignored. For years, the CBI hoarded gold, diversified its currency holdings, and quietly began severing dependence on the US dollar. It was a slow decoupling, but a calculated one. Iraq was preparing to walk alone. Concurrently, Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani's administration cleaned house. Corruption crackdowns, repatriation of stolen wealth, restoration of global trust. His government implemented major structural reforms that caught the attention of organizations like the World Bank and IMF. Iraq was no longer a rogue state. It was a legitimate contender. Oil, of course, remained the nation's backbone. But instead of burning through revenues, Iraq began redirecting profits into sovereign wealth funds and development projects. Pipelines expanded, refineries modernized, trade routes to Europe and Asia opened wide. The dinar, once backed by speculation and hope, was now supported by hard assets and robust export strength. But the most important component of this turnaround wasn't economics, it was belief. For years, millions of Iraqis and foreign investors held onto the IQD despite ridicule. They believed in the long game. That belief, rooted in patience, paid off. When the revaluation occurred, everything changed. First came the banks. Major institutions like J.P. Morgan Chase, HSBC, and Citibank activated dinar exchange protocols across their networks. VIP-level exchange appointments were booked within hours. High net worth individuals and early believers flooded redemption centers. Some walked away with life-changing wealth. But this was not a get-rich-quick scheme. It was a moment of validation. Proof that calculated speculation, when paired with deep geopolitical insight, can beat the odds. Then came the markets. Iraq's stock exchange, once regional and modest, saw record trading volumes. Foreign investors rushed in. Real estate in Baghdad, Basra, and Erbil soared. Private equity funds opened new offices across the country. International airlines began resuming full commercial flights to Iraq. It wasn't just a revaluation of currency, it was a revaluation of the country itself. Government spokespeople from neighboring states quickly issued public congratulations, and behind closed doors, scrambled to adjust their economic ties with Iraq. The Gulf Cooperation Council extended new trade privileges. Turkey and Iran renegotiated energy agreements. Europe discussed direct dinar for euro energy settlements. Even the U.S. Treasury Department, long resistant to supporting the RV theory, issued a carefully worded statement acknowledging Iraq's new status as a regional financial leader. Meanwhile, the mainstream media that once dismissed the IQD narrative were forced into a complete pivot. Overnight, articles appeared, how Iraq outplayed the markets, the currency rebirth no one saw coming, and, dinar, from war-torn to wealthy. But those who had been watching all along knew the truth, it wasn't sudden. It was methodical, strategic, inevitable. Those who held dinar, some for 10, 15, even 20 years, now found themselves faced with generational wealth. But for many, this wasn't just about money. It was about redemption, about standing firm in belief when the world said you were foolish. It was about watching a forgotten people reclaim their sovereignty and rewrite the narrative. And this is where the story gets even more powerful. Iraq didn't just revalue its currency, it redefined what's possible in the global economic order. It showed that no country is too broken to rise. That no currency is too low to climb. That no people are too defeated to dream. The revaluation of the IQD wasn't just a financial event, it was a spiritual one for millions. It was a lesson in perseverance, foresight, and courage. In the days following the RV, global financial systems shifted. Forex liquidity patterns changed, regional trade blocs formed new alliances, and quietly, other undervalued currencies began getting attention. The IQD had lit a fire. It wasn't just the dinar that had revalued, it was trust, patience, and belief in a better future. The economic ripple effects are only beginning. Iraq is expected to enter the G20 within the next 2 years. Its GDP, once reliant on oil alone, is now fueled by infrastructure, fintech, agriculture, and global trade. The dinar, stable at its new rate, has become a benchmark for regional valuation. And central banks around the world have begun adding it to their reserve portfolios. For those who scoffed at the dinar community, the RV served as a humbling reminder that history is full of unlikely victories. And this was one for the books. Now, a new chapter begins. Iraq faces the challenge of managing its new wealth, maintaining stability, and avoiding the inflationary traps that often come with sudden currency strength. But the signs are promising. The central bank has already implemented phased liquidity measures. Interest rates remain moderate, and the government has committed to transparency and inclusive economic growth. More importantly, the people of Iraq now have the dignity and purchasing power that was denied to them for decades. Basic imports are affordable. Public sector wages stretch further. Businesses are booming, and the collective energy across the nation is electric. For global investors who believed when it was unpopular, the win is personal. But for Iraq, the win is historic. The country that was never supposed to rise just did. And it didn't just survive, it thrived. The IQD is no longer a speculative mystery. It is a symbol, a signal, a sovereign reminder that the world is bigger than headlines, louder than critics, and far more capable of transformation than most dare to admit. The Iraqi dinar is the currency that was never supposed to win. And yet, here we are. It just did. Like and subscribe for more videos.